Back in 2005, DICE released the third Battlefield game in the franchise.
Initiating satellite scan. Camera deployed. Link establishing.
1942 was obviously a huge success, and the Canadians released Battlefield Vietnam just a year before. Also a game that received a lot of praise. Battlefield 2 was marketed as the successor of 1942 though, and Vietnam was seen more like a spin-off or a niche version. Which of course was absolutely correct, but even so, Vietnam was really a game worth playing. With a very unique and special atmosphere, kind of like Battlefield 1 today. But let's stay on target. Battlefield 2 is what this video is all about. If you just want to know how to play today against real players online, use the timeline below to jump to the end. If you want to see and learn more about Battlefield 2, including how it feels today, why don't you just stay a while and listen? As you might expect, Battlefield 2 came with a completely new engine powering a stunning world for its time. In a world where gamers were just about to abandon their awful fat screens, getting flat monitors which finally had more display area than depth, the concept of game with real lights and shadows was already a recipe of success. Add vast maps, more than 30 vehicles and 64 players going bananas in a modern all-out warfare, and of course you get something good. You have to understand that when Battlefield 2 was released, World War II has been the dominating genre for a long time. Suddenly, being thrown into a modern world was something rather new, let alone the possibility to run on foot, roll around in a tank or fly a jet. And it was really good looking. Had that immersive music and feel and the typical DICE problems with things that no one really cared about, like netcode or hit registration. I said the game was really good looking, and as you can see, it's really pretty. It actually looks a lot better than 1942 and Vietnam. This could easily be changed, which was necessary for all players without a decent machine to run the game, but it was also a fiesta for hard tries and competitive gamers. By decreasing the graphics, you could not only gain massive performance boost, you could also effectively remove all disturbing graphical stuff like grass or even shadows. Imagine someone trying to sit in the corner hiding in the shadows thinking he's invisible, and you're just shooting him in the head because with your setting there is no dark corner at all, it's bright as day. Battlefield 2 introduced a whole bunch of things that we today take for granted. Just to mention some things, it was the first Battlefield game with the ability to spawn outside the objective area by spawning on your squad lead, not to mention the whole idea of squads overall. The squad lead was also the link to the commander, being able to request supplies, UAV, artillery, transport or orders of course. Mentioning the commander, another new concept for the Battlefield franchise. The main task for the commander was to keep track of enemy movement, lead the entirely friendly teams, although that was pretty hard on public servers, and to provide supplies, vehicles or designate artillery strikes. The idea was that as commander, you actually did spawn into the world, found a safe spot, and then you had access to a different interface made to enable commander duty only. On the competitive scene, a question mark on the map meant just as much as a point to player. Because spotting was really sticky, a question mark usually meant there is no one there. Trying to convince players on the public servers that constant yapping in your ear from the commander was a good thing though, it wasn't so easy. There were means to prevent the enemy commander and team from getting full benefits. For instance, as a spec op, you could blow up the enemy artillery or UAV wagon, or even track enemy commander and kill him. Or her, I suppose. If any of the props were destroyed, the enemy team would need to send down an engineer to repair it, which is worked pretty much the same, but that's it. Destruction was not a thing until Bad Company came along. Other features that we have grown accustomed to from Battlefield game is the comros, which made communication a whole lot easier than trying to find your way around a bunch of F keys. It was also the first Battlefield where you could gain XP to increase your rank and unlock medals, ribbons and weapons. All vehicles spawned into the world with default settings, so you couldn't customize that. For the first time you could revive your downed teammates, but it was a skill reserved only for the medics. And it didn't matter if it was your squad or your team. There was also the cool Wake Island 2007 edition with wreckage from the old World War II aircrafts and more. Could be a pretty frustrating map as the attacking team could spend a whole lot of time not getting any solid foothold. But still a cool map, and usually it ended up in some interesting spaghetti. Battlefield 2 did not have any automatic matchmaking service. Instead, it had a pretty good server browser that still works today. Servers were generally owned by companies or communities with admins present at all the time, if it was a good one. You could only gain XP on ranked servers, which meant that they followed a preset of rules and was public. There are of course lots of things to talk about this game, but I fear that I will just bore you. If you want to know more about something in particular, just write in the comments below. Battlefield 2 soon got its first expansion, Special Forces. It was a very different take on the battlefield, and it included new factions, vehicles, weapons and maps. It was a solid expansion apart from the lack of players, at least in the Nordics. Did it? Even worse were the two DLC, Euroforces and Armored Fury. I think this was the first game ever where I encountered DLC that could only be bought and downloaded directly from EA servers. They still cost as much as any expansion in the shops. There were no real upside other than not having to go for a disc, I suppose. Generally, people didn't have as good internet connection as today, so downloading stuff took time. Eventually, Euroforces and Armored Fury were released to all players for free, together with the final patch in 2009. So yeah, already back then players felt cheated by EA. This of course made the maps much more popular, which felt good if you never paid for it, I suppose. Battlefield 2 was released in 2005. While it was highly praised by press and many gamers, it also suffered from non-existent information from DICE. The real success of Battlefield 3 wasn't released until 2011, and for a long majority of the time in between, there was little information from DICE except about different more or less weird spin-offs. That actually resulted in me, together with many other former Battlefield players, going on to play, for instance, Call of Duty 4. So how do you even play Battlefield 2 in 2022? There are two major paths, one Russian-made solution that I didn't try, and then there is the bf2hub.com. The very appealing thing with bf2hub.com is that they downloaded all user profiles from EA before they shut down, so you can create an account and continue where you left off. So for starters, you need a very old disk in working order, and then you need an optical drive in your computer. Not all modern computers have an optical drive, and neither does mine. But with some computer voodoo, I managed to put the disk in my streaming PC and install the game from there onto my gaming PC. Let me know in the comments below and I'll explain how that works, but for now just know that it did. Then download the client and if necessary the patches from bf2hub.com and register an account there. Yep, it's a bit cumbersome, but on the upside, bf2hub.com actually has your old account data. The patch also removes the need for disk inserted while playing, and that we need unless you can force feed disk into a gaming PC. Now, I'm not 100% sure how accurate it is, but it states that, for instance, my account played about 90 hours and has the rank of First Lieutenant. I don't know about the hours, but I think the rank sounds just about right for me. I know it isn't that high, but as I said earlier, playing competitively was always unranked, and that's where I put the majority of my time. Pretty sure some things were off though. It says my account was created in 2008 and that's definitely not correct. Which is quite obvious as I gained the Infantry Officer ribbon in 2006 and the Airborne ribbon in 2005. But I mean, EA was a complete mess with user accounts at this time, which actually forced me to change from just SAC to SAC 856. Back on target. Once you have installed the game on bf2hub.com, you just start the bf2hub.com client and follow the instructions and voila, your game is now finding cool servers where you can enjoy the game. I kind of thought that maybe I can find one or two active servers with actual players playing, but to my surprise, there are a whole bunch of active servers. The number of players vary over the day, but there are always servers with active players online. Rather fun actually. A fair warning though, even though it seems to work fairly well on a modern computer and it doesn't look all too much like something that has passed through a dog, it's still a very old game. Controls are a bit of a hassle and the general feeling of controlling your dude in a uniform is quite rough. It took a few rounds before I started to be somewhat useful for my team, but even so the game acted up a little bit from time to time, and well, it was a good, fun experience, but there is no way I'll trade any game time for Battlefield 2. With that said, I'm calling this video. Hope it was useful for you and that you have a good time. Cheers!